The red and blue lights flashed behind Dr. Zara Thompson's silver Mercedes as she pulled over on the quiet stretch of Highway 47. She checked her speedometer again, knowing she had been driving exactly 5 miles under the speed limit. Her hands gripped the steering wheel as she watched Officer Marcus Kane approach in her side mirror. Kane strutted toward her vehicle with an arrogant swagger, his hand resting on his holster. His pale face wore a smirk that spoke of countless similar encounters. Zara rolled down her window and placed both hands visibly on the steering wheel, a routine she had learned all too well. "License and registration," Kane barked without any greeting, his cold blue eyes scanning the interior of her car with obvious suspicion. "Good evening, officer. May I ask why you stopped me?" Zara asked calmly, reaching slowly toward her purse. "Don't get smart with me, lady." "You were speeding," Kane snapped, though they both knew it was a lie. Zara handed over her documents with steady hands. "I was actually driving under the limit, Officer Kane," she said, reading his name badge. Kane's jaw tightened. "Are you arguing with me? Step out of the vehicle. Now. Is that necessary? I haven't done anything wrong. I said get out." Kane's voice rose as he stepped back, hand moving closer to his weapon. Zara complied, stepping out gracefully in her business suit. She was tall, elegant, and clearly successful, which seemed to irritate Kane even more. "Turn around, hands on the car," Kane ordered, beginning to pat her down roughly. "Officer, this seems excessive for a traffic violation," Zara said, maintaining her composure while mentally noting every detail. "I'll decide what's excessive. You people always think you're above the law just because you drive fancy cars." Kane's words dripped with barely concealed hatred. Zara's eyes flashed, but she remained silent. She had dealt with men like Kane before, but never quite like this. Kane circled around to the passenger side of the Mercedes, his movements deliberate and calculated. "I'm going to search this vehicle for contraband," he announced loudly, as if performing for an invisible audience. "You need probable cause for that, officer," Zara stated firmly, though she knew her rights meant little to a man like Kane. "Your suspicious behavior is all the cause I need," Kane replied, opening the passenger door. He rummaged through the glove compartment, center console, and seat pockets with exaggerated thoroughness. Zara discreetly activated the voice recording app on her phone, which was still in her jacket pocket. Years of training had taught her to always be prepared for situations exactly like this. Kane glanced back at her, ensuring she was watching, then made his move. With practiced sleight of hand, he slipped a small plastic baggie from his utility belt and placed it deep inside the glove compartment, behind the vehicle registration papers. Well. "Look what we have here," Kane said with mock surprise, pulling out the planted evidence. The small bag contained white powder that looked unmistakably like cocaine. Zara's heart rate remained steady, though anger burned in her chest. "That's not mine, and you know it," she said clearly, making sure her phone captured every word. Kane held up the baggie triumphantly. "That's what they all say. You're under arrest for possession of a controlled substance." He reached for his radio with a satisfied grin. "Dispatch, this is Unit 47. I need backup at mile marker 23 on Highway 47. I've got a suspect in custody for drug possession," Kane reported, his voice filled with false authority. "Copy that, Unit 47. Backup en route," came the crackling response. Kane snapped handcuffs onto Zara's wrists, tightening them more than necessary. "You picked the wrong officer to mess with today," he whispered menacingly in her ear. Zara remained perfectly calm, knowing that everything was being recorded and that Kane had just made the biggest mistake of his career. As Kane finished securing the handcuffs, Zara turned to face him with unwavering confidence. "Officer Kane, before your backup arrives, I think you should know exactly who you just planted drugs on." Kane scoffed, "I don't care if you're the mayor's wife. The law is the law." Zara smiled coldly. "I'm Dr. Zara Thompson, Director of the Drug Enforcement Administration. You just planted evidence on the head of the DEA." Kane's face went white as a sheet. His hands began to tremble as the weight of her words hit him like a freight train. You're lying, he stammered, but doubt crept into his voice. Check my credentials again, officer. Look at the federal identification in my wallet, Zara said calmly. With shaking hands, Kane fumbled through her purse and pulled out her official DEA director badge and identification. The golden shield gleamed under the streetlight, and her photograph stared back at him alongside her official title. Oh God, oh no, this can't be happening, Kane muttered, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool evening air. Two patrol cars pulled up with flashing lights, and officers Sarah Mills and David Chen stepped out. They immediately noticed Kane's panicked expression and Zara's composed demeanor. What's the situation here, Kane? Officer Mills asked, approaching cautiously. Officers, I'm Director Zara Thompson of the DEA, Zara announced clearly. Your colleague just planted cocaine in my vehicle and arrested me on false charges. Everything has been recorded. Kane dropped the planted evidence bag, his career flashing before his eyes as he realized the magnitude of his catastrophic error. Within 20 minutes, the quiet highway transformed into a hub of federal activity. 3 black SUVs arrived simultaneously, disgorging FBI agents and internal affairs investigators who had been dispatched the moment Zara's identity was confirmed. Agent Lisa Rodriguez from the FBI approached with her badge displayed. Director Thompson, we received your emergency signal. Are you injured? I'm fine, Agent Rodriguez, but we have a serious situation here, Zara replied as Officer Mills removed her handcuffs with profuse apologies. Kane stood frozen against his patrol car, watching his world collapse around him. Detective James Walsh from Internal Affairs began photographing the scene while Agent Rodriguez collected the planted evidence bag. Officer Kane, you're suspended immediately pending a full investigation, Detective Walsh announced. This incident will be reviewed by both Internal Affairs and the FBI Civil Rights Division. As word spread through police radio channels, something unexpected began happening. Officer Chen's radio crackled with incoming calls from the dispatcher. We're receiving multiple calls from citizens who say they want to report similar incidents involving Officer Kane, the dispatcher reported. Agent Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. How many calls? 7 so far, and they keep coming in. Within the hour, a pattern emerged that chilled everyone present. Marcus Williams, a local teacher, arrived first. He planted drugs in my car last month, but nobody believed me because I had a prior arrest from college. Then came Rosa Martinez, a nurse. He did the same thing to me 6 months ago. I lost my job because of the arrest record. Each testimony painted the same picture. Kane had been systematically targeting black and Hispanic drivers, planting evidence, and destroying lives for years. Detective Walsh shook his head in disgust. How many innocent people are sitting in jail right now because of you, Kane? Kane remained silent, his lawyer having arrived and advised him to say nothing. But his silence spoke volumes as more victims continued to arrive, each carrying their own story of injustice at his hands. 6 months later, Marcus Kane sat in federal court wearing an orange jumpsuit, his hands shackled as Judge Patricia Williams read his sentence. The courtroom was packed with his victims, their families, and community members who had waited years for this moment. Marcus Kane, you have been found guilty on 14 counts of civil rights violations, evidence tampering, and conspiracy under color of law, Judge Williams announced. You are sentenced to 12 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. A collective exhale filled the courtroom as justice was finally served. Rosa Martinez wiped tears from her eyes while Marcus Williams nodded solemnly from the gallery. Outside the courthouse, Director Zara Thompson addressed the gathered crowd and media. This case represents more than one corrupt officer. It exposes systemic problems that we must address immediately. Her words carried weight far beyond the courthouse steps. Within weeks, Zara had implemented the Thompson Protocol, a nationwide initiative requiring all traffic stops to be recorded and reviewed by independent oversight committees. Police departments across the country began adopting new training programs focused on unconscious bias and constitutional policing. Body cameras became mandatory, and a federal database was created to track officers with multiple complaints. The community healing process began in earnest. The local NAACP chapter, led by activist minister Reverend Samuel Brooks, organized town halls where police and residents could engage in honest dialogue. Change doesn't happen overnight, Reverend Brooks told a packed community center. But today, we took a giant step forward. Officer Sarah Mills, who had witnessed Kane's arrest, became a vocal advocate for police reform within her department. We have to do better. We have to be better, she told her fellow officers during roll call. As the sun set over the city, Zara stood in her office looking out at the streets below. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rosa Martinez. "Thank you for giving us our voices back." Zara smiled, knowing that while the fight for justice was far from over, they had proven that courage, truth, and persistence could triumph over hatred and corruption. The system wasn't perfect, but it was changing. One honest conversation and one fair verdict at a time, hope was alive, and justice was possible.